Being that you're all volunteering organisations, some of you may or may not have known that the Working with Children check has been in place in New South Wales since 2000. You may have experience with the existing Working with Children check with the Volunteer Student Declaration, or you might be involved with engaging and recruiting volunteers to work with children with a disability, or mentoring youth who are identified at risk, and there are different criteria for those sorts of roles. The check in New South Wales is going through quite significant changes. Every 5 years we're required to review the legislation, and in the 2010-11 review, New South Wales Government wanted to look at the ways in which other states and territories have taken advantage of technology and streamline the way in which they process their checks, as well as modernise the one in New South Wales, because it was designed in the late 90s after the Wood Royal Commission, and as a result it was very paper-based, and it was very obligation-based for employers and organisations. Most states and territories around Australia put the obligation or the emphasis on the individual to go and get a Working with Children check. They make it transportable so they can go from one role to the other, and they don't need to do a duplication of that process, and we're looking to take advantage of those sorts of systems and processes as well. The regulation that's attached to our new Act is almost finalised. As soon as that's handed down, we get both a commencement date as well as definitive answers around the exemptions that are going to apply to the check, so what roles won't require a Working with Children check, as well as the 5-year phase-in schedule. So there'll be a systematic or strategic 5-year plan for engaging and absorbing different sectors and industries across the first 5 years. There are a lot of checks that are going to be done in New South Wales as a result of these changes, and the system won't quite cope with everyone jumping onto it in the first few months. So it will be a strategic staging, and there'll also be information and communication tools that we're going to be providing to big bodies like the Centre for Volunteering, where it'll be newsletter content and checklists and fact sheets that are industry specific, so we'll have volunteer specific fact sheets. We'll be passing those on. You can also find them available through our website once it goes live. Until we go live with the new system, which is forecast to be late April, possibly May, and that's the latest forecast we've been given. We are still waiting for that regulation to come back, and that will give us a commencement date. But until we go live with the new system, you have existing Working with Children check obligations under our current legislation. Essentially, if you don't know what they are, do contact us after today. If you're engaging people to volunteer with children, there are obligations to get declarations signed, and particular volunteer roles who work directly with children, kids who are living with disability, or mentoring children and youth who are identified at risk. There are certain obligations that do apply to those sorts of roles, so do contact us after today. We're going to have probably around about a 5-day shutdown period in between the existing check and transitioning across to the new check. So it is business as usual for you until our website and something what I'll advertise later on, what's called our e-newsletter. Once that reflects that we're going into the new system, we'll then give you guides on what times and what days we'll be shutting down to transition across that new system. There are certain changes that will be coming into effect with this new system, new check. First and foremost, it's quite a significant transition from organisation and employer obligations and processes across to applicant or individual obligations. In the existing Working with Children check, when you engage your volunteers to work with kids, you then got them to sign a document as well as provide identification. In this new system, anyone who wants to come and volunteer for your organisations to work with children will go and obtain their own Working with Children check. They'll have a number that they're provided by the government, and they'll then quote that number to you. So from an organisation perspective, the administration and the clerical work involved will be greatly reduced. What you'll be doing is logging onto a website or calling us and providing their name, date of birth and the number that's been issued to them, and we'll let you know whether they're clear or whether they've been barred to work with children. So if they have an active number and it's clear, you've met your obligations. You just need to verify that number on a website or by calling us. I'll talk through or step through both the processes associated with applying as well as the processes associated with verifying individual numbers. Something that was quite overdue in New South Wales, other states and territories didn't have similar systems to this. We were the only state in Australia that didn't check volunteers, and the way that the government looks at it and the community have looked at it and their involvement in the consultation, there was overwhelming support to broaden the Working with Children criminal record checking aspect to ensure that anyone who is working with children, irrespective of whether they're paid, self-employed or a volunteer or a student on placement, that they actually go through a criminal record checking process. So all people, whether paid, volunteer, self-employed, student placement, an authorised carer or a family member of an authorised carer's home, they will go through a national criminal record check to look at relevant offences that might pose a risk to children. So that's the first time volunteers comprehensively will be checked in New South Wales. it does mean that there's quite a significant jump in the numbers of checks that will be done every year, and as a result, an entirely new system had to be designed because of that. We've done away with the forms. 99% of people are happy that there won't be forms involved in this process. I had a gentleman out in Orange a few weeks ago who was a bit concerned because he felt that the internet could be dangerous and people could be fraudulent online, and maybe the government was involved in identity fraud and a whole range of concerns that he had. First and foremost, the system will be extremely secure. Secondly, just through customer service and sort of speeding up the process and the way in which checks will be done, we are going to make it an online system. The application will be done via a website. If for any reason people don't have access to the internet, a range of reasons why they would prefer to call us, they can call us during the business hours, and we will explain the process to them over the phone, and we'll then pre-populate their application on their behalf. So it's not solely a website-based system. You can call us and speak to a customer service representative, and they will actually apply on your behalf through our website. There's a two-step process, so applications has two steps. First and foremost, that online application or over the phone. Second step will be everyone's required to go to a motor registry or a New South Wales Government Access Centre. And for those that don't know, a Government Access Centre is for very regional and remote areas of New South Wales. I think there's over 30 now, generally sort of in Western and Northern and Southern New South Wales. It's where they don't have a motor registry close by, and as a result there's a designated government service or office that actually provides that process for them. Everyone else who has a motor registry available is required to go to the motor registry. When you attend the motor registry, there's a couple of things that are required. First and foremost, you need to bring your application number that you were supplied with via the website or over the phone when they apply. Secondly, you must bring the appropriate form of identification. One of the key reasons why the motor registry agency was chosen was because if you provide driver's licence or a proof of age card that they have issued, they already hold appropriate forms of identification for you to identify you. So it won't be bring your birth certificate, your passport, all those things that we find hard to identify. Simply, if you have, which the majority of people in New South Wales do, if you have a form of identification that they've provided, you just take that along with you, and that's the way of identifying you are who you are. A key thing to remember there is the person needs to attend themselves. They can't send along their wife, husband, partner, brother, sister, mum or dad on their behalf. It has to be an ID verification conducted by a motor registry or government access staff member in person. So they do need to provide that ID in person. There is a fee associated with paid child-related work. Obviously, the vast majority of people here today are only engaging volunteers, but if you do have other arms of your organisation or other divisions that engage paid staff, there's a fee associated with the Work with Children check for any paid role.